Nation, how you guys doing? Hey guys, look, we're so excited to be out here. Man, guys, this is our very first live belong group on streaming.
Yeah.
Version one.
Version one.
Yeah.
But hey guys, we're so excited about this. Just to give you a little bit of background, and well, actually, even before that, hey guys, as you're logging on, just let us know where you're joining from. Let us know your name. This is gonna be fun. You know, it's gonna take some time. We're gonna walk through and just talk through the word that we received on Sunday. Just to kind of let you guys know like why we're doing this. We know that a lot of you guys like signed up for B groups and they were closed, and it happened super quick, and so you weren't able to be a part of an online group. And so we said, come on, man, we got to do something else for Transformation Nation. Mm-hmm. And so we said, hey, look, let's do a B group and let's live stream it for those that were not able to join us. So, guys, we're excited to be a part. Hope that you guys are blessed by this. We just believe that it's going to be a really, really good night. And so let's start off with the introductions. My name is Demario. I am the Reach and the online pastor here at Transformation Church.
Mm-hmm. I'm Kyle. I am an online host here. I've been going here for about 2 years. Actually, when the relationship goals started, I popped in and I've been here ever since. It's been great.
Nice.
Hey, my name is Ramon. I'm also online host here, among other things. I've been going here for about 13 years now, and came here right after college and loved it ever since.
That's awesome.
And I'm Heather, spoiler alert, online host. I actually started coming here during the release series at a time that I was pretty desperate, not only to find God, but to find a church that I could really belong with. So I've been loving it ever since I've been here.
Yeah. Hey guys, tell us how long you've been attending Transformation Nation. Like, when did you find out? How did you find out about TC? Go ahead and post that in the comments. We definitely just want to hear about that. And so, guys, with that, hey, we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump right in. As you guys know, we're in a series called Crazy Faith. And this Sunday, we heard part 14. As you guys know, we're going to be crazy till Christmas, like Pastor Mike says. And so this series is going to get a little bit long. But yeah, we did part 14 of Crazy Faith this Sunday. And we had Pastor Craig Rochelle out of Life Church. Yeah. Awesome word. And he talked to us about Gazy faith. He came from Genesis chapter 15. He's talking about Abraham and about how God literally had to change his perspective. He even talks about how, Abraham had received a promise and God had told him some things about himself, and it was hard for Abraham to believe. And so, he just went through quite a bit. He went through some disillusionments. He was disheartened at a point, discouraged. And, but he did see the promise finally come to pass. And so let's just kind of recap some of that. One thing that Pastor Craig talked about during his sermon was about a guy that basically planted a small seed in him. And, that guy, when he planted that seed in him, which was a Bible that he gave, he never knew exactly, he didn't know what that would become. He didn't know that he was planting seed into the guy that would lead the largest church in America. And so that was a really awesome story. And so even talking about, expectations there, because God told them that he would be told Abraham that he would be the father of many nations. And, after a while, because there was such a long period of time between when God gave him the promise and when it actually happened, that he kind of came to a point where those expectations were lowered and all he could really focus on was like, well, just give me one son, and so I think that's kind of the first question is like, have you ever had a promise from God, and because of how long it took for it to come to pass, or it took for it to come to fruition, you lowered your expectation? And so I want you guys to go ahead and answer that. We're going to dialogue about that right here. And so that's the first question. Have you ever lowered your expectations because it felt like the promise of God was taking a long time to come to fruition?
Oh, yeah. I'll start. I mean, I'm on year 6 of a business, so I've owned my business for 6 years, and God basically made this happen. I didn't even want to start a business. It just kind of happened, and God had put on my heart that I was going to be doing basically like Christian ministry within a gym, and then I found out that you can make pretty good money along the way. Yeah. I'm on year 6, and I just now found out that my gym can essentially be a church.
Wow.
And so this is even within the past like 2 weeks. I had a meeting with somebody, and he's like, you got basically a micro church going on in your gym. I didn't even know it. He basically planted like I show up, I am who I am. I have Christ-like conversations with people who typically wouldn't go to church, but they'll come to the gym so they're comfortable. And so now like we're meeting on Sundays and having like a service at the church or at the gym, and it's the small plants like I'm trying to get them into, and it's crazy. You're 6, and I'm just now figuring it out. And this was promised a long time ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely mind-blowing to me. I couldn't imagine 10 years. Like, I'll probably still be waiting 4 more years, but we'll see.
Yeah.
That's the
I think about a promise God gave me when I was 14. I had just recently gotten saved, and I was going to church, and he revealed to me that I would be a pastor. And so, but between the ages of 14 and, let's see, when did I become a pastor here? That was 5 years ago. So between the ages of 14 and 33, that really didn't happen. You know, like I was like, okay, so Lord, when is it going to happen? You know, you talk about 19 years. You know, sometimes it's just, there were times where it got hard to see, like, God, when is it going to happen? Yeah. How is it going to happen? Yeah. And so it became easy to kind of lower those expectations and say, well, you know, I'm a small group leader. That's, you know, that's about as far as we're going to go. But it's like, even in the midst of like the discouragement, like God would remind me, no, this is what I said about you. This is what I called you to. And so keep your eyes focused on what I've said about you, you know, so.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the biggest desires ever since I was a kid was to be married. And I never literally in my life realized how long it would take for me to get there, because I didn't get married until I was over 30. And I was, even in my 30s, I was asking God, like, okay, God, like, when this is going to happen? What's going to happen? I don't know exactly how this is going to work out. And even during that time of waiting, I was frustrated. I was frustrated because I felt like it was taking too long. Yeah. I was frustrated because I didn't know if it was going to happen soon enough. I was frustrated because I didn't really feel a release from God to pursue anybody, even though I tried to sometimes anyway. And a lot of times I realized is that we allow frustration to lower our expectation. Wow. Yeah. And in my frustration, I allowed the frustration of what I had or what I didn't have, and the frustration of what I experienced, and the frustration of things that I desired, and I allowed my frustration to turn my expectation instead of the word and what God promised me to make that happen. Yeah. And lo and behold, just a year and a half ago, that happened for me, right?
Married man,
but it only came not as a result of me striving, but as a result of me trusting God. And honestly, everything that I thought I wanted, God completely blew my mind, because I realized in the waiting season, God actually refined what I needed versus what I wanted. That's and awesome. I realized that in that's when God showed me the things that I needed in the process.
Oh, so awesome. That's so good.
Yeah,
that just spoke to me. So no joke, like literally, like I think it was about a year ago. I've got another B group that I'm in, and we sat down because there's like 2 married guys, and most of us are single. So I'm 30, no prospects, and I've got this list. We sat down, and made a list of everything we expected God to deliver in a wife, and I've dated like 2 or 3 girls since that. It was about a year ago. Like, I have a list, and if they don't meet it, that's not God's woman for me. And I don't know if I'm being picky, but I'm just like, that's the list. That's the list.
Yeah, that's where you put your faith at, though.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
it's crazy faith. Right
there.
It
is.
It really is. I can say I'm probably in the season of frustration where I'm not married yet. 36, had just turned 36 in October, and you know, there's been so many times that along the way that I had tried to kind of make things work out, and it didn't. And when I was younger, I never recognized just how much I really truly wanted that. You just kind of like expect that it's going to happen, right? Because that's just what everybody around you, that's what they happen. But you know, as I didn't take the same path that everybody else did in my family, coming from a small town, nobody has education, kind of leaving all of that behind. And along the way, there have been disappointments. Lots of disappointments, lots of heartbreaks, lots of, you know, you're trying to like, just like Abraham had tried to make the promise happen on his own. And it just didn't work out because, you know, God, I said this on our Sunday online church when we had the live stream. So, you know, God loves you too much to answer the right prayer at the wrong time. Whether you're not ready, whether they're not ready, or whether the time is not ready. And, you know, I guess I really appreciate the lessons that I've had to learn along the way. and really give a lot of gratitude to God that, you know what, man, I really did fall on my face. I feel sometimes in some subjects like I'm the prodigal sitting in a pile of mud, like how in the world did I get here?
Yeah.
And yet God is so gracious to let you have that kind of aha moment to protect you along the way, even though some bad things have to happen. Because I can say, and I've shared that, like I've been there.
Yeah.
Just to now be at this point where all of that, you know, just like I shared about my perspective on Job, where, man, it took 36 chapters or 36 years of learning, and God just in just a little bit of that book just demonstrates who he is, says who he is.
Yeah.
And Job comes to the end of it, and he's at the end of himself, and he says, I thought I knew you. Through all of the disappointments, through all of the plans, through all the things that I thought was going to happen, my expectations, not giving them away to God and trusting him, because that's his love language, is us trusting him.
Yeah.
And Job said, now I've truly seen you. And I feel like coming out of so many of those, and God really humbling me to really see at the other side of it, like, I protected you through it. Just when you thought I was leaving you, I wasn't leaving you. I was letting you learn. But just like Job, nothing was going to happen to you that I didn't already know was going to happen, but that I didn't make sure wasn't going to break you.
Right.
It was just going to bring you closer to me.
That's
And
very good.
Yeah, and I see even some comments online. I see Susie. We're talking about relationships here, and I see Susie. You said that you've lowered your standard way too many times in relationships, and you're waiting now. And I just want to commend you
amen.
because one thing about faith is that even when you look at the story of Abraham, like Heather mentioned, like he's considered the father of faith. But he was not perfect in his wait.
Amen.
He had a moment where he tried to just make something happen. And of course, Ishmael was born, and baby mama drama, and all kinds of other stuff. And so I just commend you, Susie, for being willing to wait. I also see a comment from Nicole. You said that you've been kind of waiting on your living situation to change, and you've tried to do it multiple times. That's trying to make it happen,
exactly.
but God keeps stopping you. And so I just want to encourage you. Be patient. You know that God has already promised you something, and so be patient. He's got that thing already set up for you. And the thing is that when God does it, there's no regret with it. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no there's no buyer's remorse. You're at peace with it. You know,
I like how Craig said this past week is like, if it's not God's timing, it won't happen.
Oh,
But if it's
that
God's
was
timing,
exactly.
nothing can stop it.
I love that.
So I got on
That
my
is
sleeve
right.
right here. You can't stop me, if you can see that.
Oh yeah. I like this. I like
That's
that.
another sermon right there.
I also see, Terrell, you said that you started back tithing and you're struggling getting bills paid, but you're still standing. I think that's the other thing is that faith, sometimes it's a life full of contradictions where you're facing something that it's contradicting everything that you're believing God for, everything that that you're standing for and believing for. And so I just want to encourage you, Terrell, that you keep standing on Malachi 3:10 and 11.
If I can add to that, let me tell you, in January, I had come out of probably the most detrimental time in my life, and I was at that breaking point. And I had, everything was away from God because I felt like God had left me. But like I say, he was letting me get to exactly the place where I had found TC. I changed everything. I was undone. I said, God, I'm going to just, whether begrudgingly or not, I can't do this anymore without you. Tithing was one of them. But also, I put up on my window, up on my cabinet where I would put, because I was making cash at the time, serving. I had a jar there and I had Malachi 3:16 on there. But then I had, at 3:6, I had on my bathroom mirror, I would wake up and I would quote Psalm 91 and I would say it to myself, like I've made him my high. I'll tell you what, there's something though even when you don't feel it, like to just like God,
do it.
God, if you are truly infallible, if your word stands forever, then you have to honor it because God is not a liar. And I would be crying some mornings because I was so desperate to feel those words and to see those words come to pass. And I promise you, if you stick with it, they do. Because I watched it happen in my life. And God is not partial. He does it for everybody.
That Blessed Life series, that's when I really, I had tithe. It was just like, here's $5, here's $10 here and there. But no, when I really understood what tithing was the Blessed Life one. read the book. I was like, how can God be so good to so many other people, but He's not doing that to me yet? So I started tithing, and then it's the same thing with expectations. I was like, immediately I'm about to get $200. I tithe $100 or something like that.
Yeah.
But it took like 3 or 4 months to really be at peace with giving, doing that. And then finally, like, I started seeing some more change in me. It wasn't the fact that the dollars were there. It was the fact that I saw change in my heart. And then it's been faithful. Like, it's just gone now. Like, it's out of my account. I don't even notice it. And like, there are some months when like I'm struggling, but I'm just like, I would rather be struggling and be faithful than be struggling and stealing from God. So I'm at that point with you too. Like, you have to do it. You have to start. You have to continue to do it.
And you brought out a good point that, sometimes you have to do it even while you don't see it yet. That was something that Pastor Craig even talked about on Sunday when he was talking about the story where the guy Mike had gave him the Bible in college.
He's not seeing that.
Mike had never. Mike had no idea that little seed.
What was that, like 30 years ago?
30 years is like, I forgot. You know what I mean? And so, that just speaks to doing it even if you feel like you're not seeing anything happen.
I think too is we can't always determine the results. Only God can do that. And I think even thinking about Mike when he gave Craig that Bible, I think. Like, Mike would have never known, probably into heaven unless he came back and talked to him, the seed that he sown by giving him that Bible, and literally the hundreds of thousands to even millions of people that Life Church has began to influence and impact had it not been as a result of one person handing Craig Rochelle a Bible.
Right.
That's right.
And to add to that, if you even think of it in perspective, if Mike that gave him that Bible then followed him, he would have probably been thinking, that ain't going nowhere. This dude's out in the bar. Dude's like, what are you praying for the girl to be pregnant? Come on, get out of here. If he would have judged it by what he was looking at then, he would have thought, no way.
Yeah, exactly.
But Mike probably said, you know what, Lord, like every Bible that goes out, I'm believing it is going to bring back a harvest. No matter what.
He definitely prayed over every single one of those books. I can guarantee you that.
Exactly.
It's like even in my like pursuit, like at my business, I am praying over every single thing in my, like, someone touches a medicine ball. So I own a gym. If you touch a medicine ball, that medicine ball has been prayed over because I want someone, whoever touches it, to seek God, basically. I'm doing that. It's the same thing with those Bibles. I guarantee he prayed over every single one of those.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
And it's your expectation too.
I
just want to stamp that, because if you prayed over them and said, the Bible kind of says it, but and didn't really truly have that expectation. But when you have that expectation, like, I don't care, God, I know I prayed for it, and I know that it is going to come to pass.
Well, and I even want to talk to Christina. Christina, you said that you've been just so frustrated with your job search because God led you to walk away from a toxic environment 5 months ago, and like you've been applying, and it's just been yielding no results up to this point. And I hope that just the conversation that we kind of just had is encouraging you that, hey, keep doing what God told you to do. Even when it feels like God is doing nothing, God is doing something. And he's making sure that the right situation is what you're in this next season of your life.
I personally want to speak to that because that was me. I worked at a job that I hated for 8 months. And literally I was like, Lord, why am I here? My boss was crazy. My coworkers was crazy. Like, everybody was crazy. But the thing that happened is, there were two things I realized. Number one, God will always tell you no, right? Whenever you're not supposed to do something, God is a God of boundaries. He's going to always tell you what not to do. But the other thing I realized that I was frustrated with the job, but God had me there for the people.
Wow.
Because as a result of me being there, God allowed me to bring.
God allowed me to.
Hey, where's my bucket?
No, but God allowed me to, number one, help another friend of mine get a job there who really desperately needed one. He also allowed me to minister to several people who were there. And even though I was frustrated with the duties of the job, God reframed my perspective and reframed my mind and helped me to realize that it wasn't about the job, because I was frustrated about the job. But when I put my focus on His purpose and not my frustration, that's when I allowed the peace of God to really overflow in my heart. And so I would just encourage you, Christina, like, don't focus on the job, because you may not be there for the job. You're frustrated with the duties, because it's not where
Yeah.
you want to be. But maybe God has you there for the people, and maybe your light is transforming someone's life. And once you've gotten that lesson, and once you've done what God has told you to do, then He'll transition you where you need to be at. But until then, whoever you're supposed to impact, maybe there's somebody there you're supposed to minister to. Maybe there's somebody there you're supposed to encourage. Maybe there's somebody there that you're supposed to empower. Maybe you're supposed to lead your crazy boss to Christ. You never know what your light is doing. People can't see our life, and people can't see the light of Christ in us unless we're under conflict, unless we're under oppression, right? And when everything is going good, you're good, right? But the best way to show Christ is when things aren't going well for you, and that's the best way to really show the fruit that you have inside of you. So
I gotta second that one, because I was in a similar situation,
Yeah.
and God used it. It was, I had left for a bit. I was at a job I hated, and then I got laid off.
Yeah.
And I've told you this story, and that's how I got led to teaching.
Yeah.
In the middle of trauma.
Yeah.
I was looking.
Yeah.
I kind of turned me off in the middle of the worst situation, dealing with the worst situation. God had introduced me to where I was going, and that was to teach.
Yeah.
But in the middle of it, though, I had to go back, because financially I had to go back to this job that I had left, hated. And it was exactly what God spoke to me. And every day I would walk in the door. Galatians 5:22, I wake up every morning, and before I walk in the doors of my school, I say, I thank you, Lord, that your grace is sufficient, is giving me the Spirit to be your Spirit is leading me to have that desire to be your love, your joy, your peace, your patience, your goodness, your kindness, your faithfulness, your humility, your self-control. But I had to start saying it at that job. Everyone was cursing and crazy around me. And even in the middle of it, God had said, stop letting your environments change you. You need to change your environments. And I began to do that. And I saw people who were just like, who is this person?
Exactly. Yeah.
They knew who I was. They knew how angry I was at the job. They knew me before I left. And then I came back. And it ministered.
Different person.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Amen.
That's powerful.
Wow.
Well, even talking about just small seeds and the impact that it had, the big impact that small seeds have. I think about Pastor Craig's story, and I think that we all probably have, a similar story. Like somebody's done something that made an impact in our life, and they might not have even realized how big it was. And so that's kind of my next question. Like, have you guys experienced something to where like someone, sowed a small seed into your life, and they didn't know what it meant, but it really just meant a lot to you, a lot more than they realized, and that you even realized. I think back. I'll kind of start this. I think back to even when I was in high school, and if someone saw me then, like you wouldn't think pastor, preacher, anything. But I was in youth group, and my youth pastor, she would just always she would always tell us to say, "I am somebody," and that little seed, that little word. That was enough to keep me actually through some of the hardest times of my life, the times where I felt like quitting and not, pursuing pastoral ministry or whatever. And so, like I said, that one little statement from her, it kept me believing in myself. I am somebody. I am somebody. And so, how about you guys? Like, has there been someone that maybe did something small that had a big impact on you? Oh, yeah. Online, let me know.
Yeah, I would say for me, I remember I was in technical college. This was years and years ago, and I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do in my life, and I was trying to figure out what field I wanted to go into and what I wanted to do. And I eventually decided that I wanted to learn more about graphic design, because that was something that I realized I love design, I liked art, I love creativity, and I actually went and enrolled into a technical school, and I wasn't able to complete the full program there. But I had a teacher at that technical school that believed in me so much that they gave me their old computer. And they gave me their computer. They had all the it was like the first generation Photoshop, the first generation of everything. It was like the old
I started on 3, so that's super at the day.
But it was the first generation of everything. And I remember getting that, and I was blown away. It was they had scanners back then. She gave me a scanner and everything. And she said, I know you're leaving this program because for whatever reason you can't afford it, but I want to sow this seed into your life because you are great at what you do, and you are going to be amazing at what you do in this field.
Yeah.
And she was the first person to sow that seed into my life to really catapult me into my creative career, into my design career. And even the things that I'm doing right now started from that seed. But
That's
on top of that, she didn't realize that she was the first person for years. I had never had to, because I love Macs, I never had to buy a Mac computer for at least 10 years.
Wow.
And so she was the first person to give me a computer, and every time I needed a new computer, the Lord always blessed somebody somebody to give me a brand new computer, or give me a computer that I never, or use one, or a new one that I didn't realize I needed it. And they would give it to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was blown away, right? And so that seed to me changed my life, because had it not been for my instructor giving me that computer, like I would have never gotten a chance to do the stuff that I wanted to do then.
That's incredible. Hey, I see, Nicole, you said that during a college Bible study, the pastor went around and hugged each student saying, you are my dearly loved son in whom I am well pleased. And that's just awesome to see how a hug, something that's simple,
awesome.
Nothing tangible, nothing financial, like a hug literally was enough to hit your heart like that and impact you in that way.
Oh, yeah.
So, Kyle,
I'll go ahead and go. So I've got two people. So it's funny. Yours is technical school. I have a technical, instructor, and I have a pastor as well.
Yeah.
So the simple one, his name is Mr. Michael. This is an automotive shop. I was going to be an automotive mechanic. That was my dream for some reason. So I wanted to do that. But me and this other guy were sitting in the shop, we were checking out tools that day. So it was just him and I. We had a radio. We didn't get to work on cars. We had to make sure all the tools were in and out. He heard that we were listening to worship. And so he pulled us aside, and he's like, hey, I can't say anything to anybody because of rules and whatnot with schools. But he was like, you guys are the ones that are going to change the world. By listening to worship, they're going to hear you, they're going to see you, they're going to see the change that is in you. And so he planted that seed, and I always look back at it. I wish I could find him. I don't know his last name. It's just Mr. Michael. But the other one is a youth pastor. So this is the craziest. He taught me life lessons. So he pulled me aside one day, was like, hey, I really think that you would be a good kind of an associate youth pastor, hang out with us. And so this is right after high school. He taught me how to get my first credit card, how to balance my books, how to do everything, basically anything and everything. The reason why I am who I am today was because Jonathan Hines literally told me everything about my life. It was just
incredible.
For free. Now he's like a Christian counselor. He sat there and listened to me probably
10
hours a week. I hung out with him. I got free services for 4 years. It was
awesome. That's awesome.
And it was all Christian based. He would tell me everything I ever needed to know. It was wild. And I still I'll hit him up every now and then let's go get coffee, and I just unload on him. He's like, well, this is what you should do. And I'm like, I need to repay him back. He would even take me to lunch, take me anywhere. I was like, I need to give him something.
But you know something? You are giving him something. The gift of seeing your life impacted. You know what I'm saying? I think that's the greatest gift that we can give to the people that have sown seeds into us, is that our lives reflect what they've given. Man, just hit a few more comments from online. Juan Aletha, you said one of your sisters in Christ came up after your divorce, and out of the blue, she just told you that you were enough. Talking again about the intangible things, words, one word, and you're just saying she didn't even know how broken you were at that time, and so the fact that hit you and that's held you, that's so awesome. Christina, you said that your kindergarten teacher said that you were poised for greatness. And you've held on to those words since then, and even when you've gone through some of the most difficult seasons of your life, kindergarten, I'm sure that was a long time ago.
I don't know.
What I'm saying? I don't know how old you are. If you're 20, that's a long time ago. And so just the power of life-giving words.
She's making full sentences, so we know she's
I know I'm sorry, Lene, I believe. That's what we're going to go with. You said that you have been fired from your job of 5 years and just took on a woman at the hospital that took your blood, simply told you that she saw something in you and that whatever you choose to do, you'd be great in it. Once again, just the power of a word, the power of an encouraging word that really has the power to kind of lead us into our next. And so
for that to come from a stranger is
even
more so. They don't even know you, but they see so obviously maybe they got a word from God, hey, you need to say this to them. That's deep, very deep.
How about you, Heather?
I can say coincidentally enough, and it was probably the preview to where my life would go, is it was my high school art teacher. And now granted, I'm teaching art at elementary level in a trauma school, high trauma school. Majority are low income. And she was like my rock in a time where my parents were going through a lot of turmoil. We were ships passing in the night, and for a teenage girl who was already, I was the tallest kid. I was a
Yeah.
big girl, and I was bullied a lot. And I tell my kids all the time, bullies create bullies. So at that
Yeah.
point, I was a mean girl. And art was my refuge, though. It's always been my refuge. I was drawing and playing basketball like out the womb. Those are my two things. And I had come back from probably one of the worst rejections of my portfolio. It was an instant, when you go to portfolio days as an artist, this is in high school. My junior year, I just tanked. I was the A student, tanked because I hated school. I was sick of being harassed. Skipped most of it, come back senior year. And she was really encouraging to me that time. Like, apply to Brown, apply to RISD, who knows? You don't know what they're gonna say, you just go. Sent me to a school in Chicago, they rejected me, and I was like, heinous rejection. And she came back, and what she sewed into me when I came back was the thing that evolved me into the artist that I am, the person that I am, and probably got me through everything from being homeless, jobless,
Wow.
penniless, still trying to get through college.
Yeah.
And she said to me, well, you know what? You can accept what they had to say, or you can just decide to do it better.
Come on,
And I've
come on.
used,
Wow.
I've said
That's
this
so
to my
good.
kids.
Wow.
I told my kids
Wow.
this story in the beginning of the year to let them kind of know who's your art teacher. I said I would spend hundreds of hours on a piece of work because I was determined to change my course.
Yeah.
And I said there were times I would stand back and look at it and I would throw it away because it wasn't good enough. And they're like, no, Miss H, you did not. And I said, but because you know what? I was so determined that I would not be afraid to make mistakes. I would not be afraid to try, but I would also not be afraid to say I can do better and to tank what I did.
Wow.
Went back 6 months later, and they were so blown away because they have your previous stuff because it was
Yeah.
from fall and then here's spring. And they borderline were like, I mean, like, this isn't your work. Like, is this really your work?
Wow.
But that was something that she instilled in me. I've carried it my whole life.
Wow.
To not be afraid as an artist, to not be afraid as an individual. Like, if everything just stinks around you, to just hit reset,
Yeah.
crumple it up, and start again.
That's beautiful. That's
Wow.
beautiful. I love that. I love that. So during the message this Sunday, one thing that Pastor Craig said was that if God met all your expectations, He would never have the chance to exceed them.
That was so good.
And I thought that was such a powerful statement. And so here's our last question for the night. What are you frustrated with God about because He hasn't moved according to your timeline? And so we got to be honest now. Like what we talked about things we've been through and things in the past, and so I think that we all are waiting on something.
Yeah.
And the reality is that it gets frustrating.
Yeah.
And so online, I definitely want you guys to answer this one. Once again, let me ask again. What are you frustrated with God about because He hasn't moved according to your timeline?
I'll kick off with that. One thing that I know wife and I have been believing God about is debt freedom.
Yeah,
We have been working at it. We've been working hard at it, but it's tiring, you know. And it's one of those things where we know we continue to work it, but we know there's a miracle involved in our debt freedom. And we truly believe that God has promised us there's a miracle when it comes to us being debt free. And that as we continue to be faithful with what He's given us, He's going to do something supernatural with that.
Yeah.
And so for us and for my wife and I, that's something we put before God. And it's definitely been frustrating because it keeps coming back to bite you. It keeps coming back just in the things that you want to do, the things that you want to give, the things that you want to see, the space you want and margin you want in your finances to do certain things. That just keeps creeping back, and it's just like, here it is, student loans, Sallie Mae, here we go,
Hello.
And it's one of those things where we know that like God is faithful. He's going to do some incredible things with it. But we're believing God that there's going to be a miracle between our faithfulness and God working His super with our natural. We're believing God this time next year we'll be debt free. And that's what we're going to stand on. That's what we're going to trust on. And I look forward to being a true testimony. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Beauty. When I think about kind of my frustration, mine would be around household salvation, like some of my family members. And actually, it's really even more around a healing. My sister, back in 1999, that was 20 years ago. Wow. She was diagnosed with a condition, and just believing that God is a healer, and that God can do it, and God is bigger. After 20 years, it's like, Father, where are we? And it's looking worse than it did, when it first started. And so it's like, God, I need your encouragement. I need you to say something to me. Am I doing something wrong? Am I praying wrong? And so I, just to be real honest, y'all, like, it's frustrating because it's like I think that I'm doing everything that you've told me to,
Yeah.
and yet still like 20 years, like
Yeah.
that's a long time, and it's still not happening. And so, you know, I definitely say that, you know, my personal timeline, you know, I mean, 20 years, you can do a lot in 20 years. Like you can finish school. I mean, you can have kids. Like there's just so much that you can do in that span. So it's like, God, like, you know, life's passing by, and, you know, time's going by, and it's still not happened yet.
Yeah.
You know, for her to be able to, you know, just to function and to have a normal job. And so, Father, what, like, what's going on? And so, if I could be just 100, like that would be my biggest
That's
one
real.
right there.
That's real.
Yeah.
I'll say, you know, as I went through, I met in Wisconsin because I'm from Wisconsin. I sat in a service with a young pastor who was in Madison, Wisconsin. My aunt brought me to the service, and it was October 15th, and I don't remember a lot of things. Like, I'm like one of those, my brain has so much coming in at once. There's so much stuff that gets dumped out. And I'll never forget sitting in that service, and that was the first time I'd ever heard about Rhema. That was the first time that I heard about Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was the first time that I felt kind of like that out of body, like God said, that's you. Yeah. I didn't understand at the time, but I went to seminary school. I mean, God was paving the way. Pastoral degree, then go pave the way for ORU, bachelor's degree, then a master's degree, and you come out in 2016 after all this schooling, and everyone's just telling you you're so smart, you're so great, and I literally was so far on my face, and kind of got sick of hearing the encouragement.
Wow.
You know, like,
Isn't that something?
There's so much to be said about that. Just sometimes the encouragement, it's like nails on the chalkboard, and you're just like, quit throwing that crap at me. And my dad used to, he would, he'd still be like, you know, Heather, Bible, because my dad's a pastor, I'm like, you know, whatever. I was really in that dark place in my time, in this time period. But, you know, what's crazy is nothing has yet come to pass that was dreamed about, that was spoken about, things that I just knew that God was laying on me in college. But my perspective changed.
Yeah.
And Craig Rochelle, I love him because he has a lot of books that talk about that perspective shift.
Yeah.
Sure.
My first B group did Lisa Turkis, It's Not Supposed to Be This Way. And I promise you, if you're male or female, please, I'm begging you, and I say this probably almost every Sunday if I'm online hosting, because I get so many disappointment or I get those questions all the time in prayer. Yeah. That book changed my life because that's where I heard that God loves you too much to answer the right prayer at the wrong time.
That's good.
But the thing is so often we think that it's because we're not right.
Yeah.
You know, and like you were saying, am I praying right? Am I doing this right? Like, where did I misstep? But that's not how God's looking at it. Like, when you really, truly, like, put into practice Proverbs 3.
Yeah.
And, like, his ways are so far above your ways, and his thoughts so far above our thoughts. Yeah. And he knows everything that he needs to take you through, whether good or bad, so that you are ready. All the things he would. All the things it took me, all the college degrees, and yet I'm an elementary art teacher in number 50 in education, right? Number 50 in education, number 1 in prisons. But I was so passionate about it. I had so many friends that were speaking on the matter when the teachers did the walkout. And it's something that I have not shared with a lot of people, but I know that God is putting in me something that's going to have to do with politics, like that political side of it. Yeah. I don't know what it is, you know, and I hold on to it, and I know God, when you're ready, you're going to pull it out. He gave me a word on Sunday about writing things down. Yeah. And I have had truth. We're sitting here hosting next to each other, and he had said that, and I knew that was God speaking to me, because there were things that I was conceptualizing that I wasn't writing down, that I needed to write down because they were so important. Because even though the journey right now looks like okay, if I said it to a normal person, like, you have all these degrees, you're doing what with them? You're not, but because God is taking me on a process, because it's not about getting me to some lofty place and then me failing. It is about perfecting the inside.
Well, because like you said, the journey, the reason for the journey is to prepare you for the destination, so that when you get there, you won't lose it, you won't squander it, you know. And so even some of our responses online, I see Susie, you know, you're part of the frustration is, you know, you're waiting on a husband. Angela, for you, now wait for it, because the one thing you don't want is the wrong one. So,
Exactly.
I got my list. I'm holding fast to that list. Like I'm holding fast to Jesus.
Or someone else's husband. You don't want
That's right.
Hey.
Angela, you said that for you, it's starting an internship in January that you were supposed to start last June, and just not understanding why the delay. And so I think that we can all kind of take encouragement in kind of what Heather was talking about, that, part of the reason for the journey is so that when you get to the destination, you're able to hold on to it. It's the right time and it's the right situation.
And if I can even just tail on the end of that, because that in that book, that expectation shift, where rather than it being about your expectation, remember how Pastor Mike in one of his sermons, he was talking about this very principle. He said, you know what? Rather than getting mad about the flat tire on the side of the road, maybe I'm like, all right, Jesus, who am I meeting right now? Like, who's showing up that I needed to meet, that you had to pop the tire? Yeah. It's not always like that. Yeah. It's not always going to be like that. But it changes you on the inside. Yeah. It changes you when you're like, you know what, God? Okay, not June. Yeah. Because there's somebody you need me to meet. I need to be there at the same time as somebody else. Yeah. There's something divine that you have planned, and that I'm coming for a divine appointment. Yeah. Well, because who knows what happens, but when your shift is more important, that shift in perspective.
That's it. It's a change in perspective of how you view delays and frustrations and setbacks, and understanding that, hey, there's some part of my assignment that is coming as a result of this. Pamela, we see for you, even your financial situation, you're tired of living paycheck to paycheck, even though you're tired. That was something that even Pastor Craig talked about on Sunday, is that, you're doing the right things and it's like, it's not happening yet. Juana Letha, you said sometimes you feel like you're talking, like God isn't talking to you, that you're not hearing anything, and that frustrates you. Aaron, for yourself, you said that having your own home with your husband and a shift in your finances. And then Angel, you said that you're a 4-time publisher and you get good responses, but it feels like it's just not prosperous. And so, man, we identify just with the frustration of feeling like you're doing the right thing and you're in the right place, but just feeling like there's no progress, or that it's not happening on the timeline. And so I would just encourage all of us, myself included, all of us, that, as we are on our journey and it seems like things aren't happening at the time that we would prefer, or that we would want them to happen, that we do look around and say, God, why am I here? Why the delay? Is there something that I'm supposed to be doing in this season? Something I'm supposed to be getting in this season? Something I'm supposed to be releasing in this season? Like, God is always, not only is he working for you, but he's working in you. And so a big part of the journey also is God working on your heart. It's him sending you through processes and through situations that literally deal with you and deal with character and just all kinds of things, because he sees much further than we can. And he when we're looking at one child like Abraham, he's looking at a whole nation. He's looking at generations down the line. So
one thing you taught me, D, is oftentimes when you're in a delay or a frustration gap, is usually God would tell you things to do that may not seem like it relates. Yes. But he's looking at our obedience to the things that doesn't make sense, that take us to the things that we really desire. Yeah. And a lot of times we want God to do something and move in a way. We're like, God, like every single time I've asked God about something I was frustrated about, like, why isn't it happening, Jesus? Yeah. And God always reminds me, have you been faithful to the last thing that I told you? Come on. Even though the last thing that he usually tells us has nothing to do, well, God, I'm looking for a new this. And he's like, did you clean your house today? Have you been faithful with that? Well, God, I really want this. Have you been taking care of your children the way you're supposed to be? Right. Well, God, have you been treating your wife the way you're supposed to be? What was the last thing God told you? Yes. And what has been the consistency of your faithfulness with that thing? Because oftentimes there's a measuring stick to us accessing to our next. And that's the part when he's trying to work out the character inside of us.
In my job, what's so true about that is when I got there, God just spoke to me that, you've been asking for children. You have 550 of them to learn to love.
Wow.
I'm real. No, I'm serious.
Wow.
Because I used to walk in a job and be like, well, I don't got a husband, no kids, so look, I'm the perfect manager, I'm the perfect this. But you know what? I'm the perfect right now at this moment because every time I do the same thing with my kids. In the morning, I pray, like, Lord, some of them are so hungry for love
Definitely, yeah.
that I will just come up behind them and hug them,
Yeah.
put my hands on their head. God, every time I touch their head, you are healing them from the inside out.
That's awesome.
The trauma they've been through, the things that they face every day. You are healing those little minds and those little hearts. You are keeping them safe.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, because you know what? If I looked at it like, well, I don't got a 36. Well,
Yeah.
sorry, God. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? Because all I can do is just sit back and say, even if he doesn't show up, God loves me too much.
Yeah.
And he loves these people too much. So if I'm truly about loving God and truly about walking it out, my life is my worship, that, you know what, if it doesn't happen, then I'm going to pour into these kids, like every single one of them is my kids. But that, you know, like what are you doing right where you are right now?
Exactly.
Not looking forward to the thing that I don't have, but saying, you know what, every day. I've got time to be there extra. I have time to tutor them, all these kids that are below. I have time to start an after art program that all the parents are asking me for.
So good.
Exactly.
Take advantage of that.
Exactly.
Someday they're going to look back just like we're looking back, and you're the one that planted the seed in them. If
That's
they're
it.
kindergartners, someone just planted a seed in a
That's
kindergartner here in our list.
Yeah.
They're going to say, hey, this teacher in kindergarten literally just came up behind me, hugged me,
Yeah.
prayed for me, did some things like
20 years from
Yeah.
now, that kindergarten
Yes.
will be telling this story.
it could be.
Exactly.
They'll be sitting on this couch.
You know what I
with
mean?
us.
And I'll tell you, the coolest thing is my kids will recognize something as simple as,
Bracelets.
Yeah.
Miss H, you go to my church. And you know, it'll usually be that one that like, man, I can't get them to stop talking. And all of a sudden,
Related with
Miss H. Yeah, and they want to talk, you know, some of those moments.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Those little moments.
Yeah.
That I feel like God's in the details. Just
He
those
is.
little He knows what you needed at that moment, just at that time, just that little bit of encouragement or that little bit of reminder that, oh, you go to my church.
Yeah.
I better act
Yeah.
right.
Or you go to my church. What is Jesus like looking at me like,
Yeah. What's
is
the
this
example?
Jesus?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I'm the Jesus they're seeing that moment.
Yeah.
You know, that little, just
That's what I try
God
to do every
knows
day
what
at
you
work.
need
is
at that
like,
little moment
there
when
are
you're
certain
looking.
days where I'm frustrated with, like, obviously I deal with adults. It's like an adult daycare, as I call it.
Yes.
Adults are harder sometimes to take care of than kids. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I have to be patient with sometimes, and like when I'm teaching and coaching, some things are very technical.
Yeah.
And I just want to turn my back and be like, that was great, and just like what the heck, you know?
Yeah.
So like I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. You have to be patient with it.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I love kind of where we're going with this. Guys, we're going to go ahead and close up for tonight. I pray that this was beneficial, that you guys loved it. We're going to be back next week, and we're going to push this out to even more people, but we wanted to start here. But I just want to encourage you guys, like, as we're about to get off, you know, we've been talking about the small seeds that have impacted us. We realize that, like, the small seeds, that the small things that you do is impacting the next generation. And so I just want us to be intentional this week, to do the small thing, the thing that's like, does anybody even recognize this? Does anybody even care? Go ahead and do it. Like, smile at that person, shake that person's hand, you know, put the grocery cart away for that, you know, that person that's not able to do it. Just words of kindness, acts of kindness, like, these are seeds that literally go into people's hearts and that literally change their destinies. And so,
Can I
with that-
just, so often on online hosting, I feel like I'll get so many prayers that I feel like God's not next to me. Or I answer the Facebook messages, and they'll pour that out. The little seeds, even in the moments, just that little seed of maybe I'm gonna talk to God just a little more today. Or you know what I do? I've shared this, because especially when we were sharing about YouVersion.
yeah.
I would love to say that I have time to wake up and read. I don't. But you know what I do? I get ready in the morning, YouVersion, audio Bible.
Yeah.
Those little moments. And I can tell
Those
you
are
how many
sweet
times,
moments.
because
Yeah.
I actually respond better to hearing somebody vocalizing it, saying it out loud.
Yeah.
Because I would have to read out loud.
Yeah.
Those 15 minutes, I can't tell you how many times I've had revelation in my bathroom that God has spoke to me because that little seed in the morning, and I was looking for him.
That's good.
I didn't hear God's
Powerful.
voices. I don't know who the dude's voice is on the NLT,
Yeah.
but
They go back and
Close
forth
enough.
like in
He
characters.
sounds pretty
yeah.
That earlier today.
Or that, you know it's the righteous scripture because the music
Yes,
starts playing in the
yes.
background. You're like, oh, I got,
Little
ooh, yes,
soft
this is Jesus. But you know what?
Yeah.
It started in a dark time in my life,
Yeah.
a little seed.
Yeah.
Just a little seed. Or I was in my office and I used to listen to sports radio all the time, and somehow YouTube figured out that because I listened to Stephen Furtick, I needed to see this black guy that was on a screenshot, and I was like, ooh, he's good looking. Is that sad? It's that sad, but that got me to Transformation Church. God knew
He'll use
how
it
to
all.
figure it out.
He'll work everything,
Right?
yeah.
And he had Kevin Hart jokes, and I was like, yeah, this is my dude right here, right? Like, that got me going. And then all of a sudden, little seeds.
Little seeds.
Little seeds.
Yeah.
So hey, well, Transformation Nation, we're gonna go ahead and close out. I want to pray for you. Then we're gonna close out the evening. Father, we just come to you right now, God. We thank you for just our discussion tonight, Lord God, as we talk about Gazy faith, Lord God, that you're changing our perspective, Lord God, in the midst of our frustrations, in the midst of things not going and happening in the timeline that we expect. Father God, in the midst of doing things that sometimes seem like they don't matter, Lord God. But Father, we thank you that you are changing our perspective about what it means, Lord God, to walk by faith, Lord God. We're willing to do the small things. Father God, we're willing to take notice, Lord God, of the little things that you're doing in us, Lord God. And even as we're going through moments of frustration and it seems like things aren't happening in our time, Father God, change our perspective, Lord God. Allow us to look at the delays and sometimes even the setbacks and say, okay, God, this is an opportunity for me to be developed. This is an opportunity for character to grow. This is an opportunity, Lord God, for you to teach me something that I have not learned yet. Father God, we change our perspective. We thank you, Lord God, for this series and how it's revolutionizing our lives. Lord God, I thank you for Transformation Nation. I thank you for all my brothers and sisters that watch tonight. That Father God, that you know all of our situations intimately. And God, you're intervening on our behalf. Lord God, you have things planned for us that we don't even see yet, Lord God. We just ask, Lord God, that you would help us to keep the perspective that you know what's ahead, even when we don't. That, Lord, you are watching out for our best interests, even when we can't understand why you're doing certain things or why certain things aren't happening. So, Father God, I speak encouragement. I speak hope. I thank you, Lord God, just for your word. I thank you, Lord God, for this. Thank you for community that we get to discuss your word, Lord God. I just ask you to bless every person that watched tonight, Lord God. Bless all of those that are walking through the journey of faith. And we thank you for all that you're doing in Transformation Church and in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hey, Transformation Nation, we love y'all.
Woo!
Woo!
We love you guys.
Hey, look.
Everyone.
Hey, you guys are part of the very first live streaming Transformation Church Belong Group, so congratulations.
We definitely need feedback.
Yeah, we do. We do. This is fun. This is
Yeah,
fun for
I
us.
enjoyed
We
it.
hope
Yeah,
that
this
it
was
was
fun.
good for you.
Yeah.
But like I said, we'll be back next week, same time, 7:30 Central Standard Time. And so we love you guys. Go out this week and live a transformed
Hey, and definitely
life.
share it.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Share it, guys. And so we'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye.